Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the New Standard. Want to welcome everybody to the show. And if you're looking at the show, you're looking at the video right now. I'm sure you're saying, "Where is Neil?" Neil is on his way. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but I wanted to get the show started. Before we start the show, I want to thank everybody for checking out the program. I want to thank everybody for participating, for hitting us with the likes and subscribed. If you're not liked or if you're not subscribed to the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button. As always, to find the show, you can go to YouTube, do a search for the New Standard and Lance Williams or Neil Coulong. And when you get there, make sure you link and subscribe. I want to say big up to everybody that's hopped on already. Big up to my man Superstar Kwame Law. Make sure you check out Superstar Kwame Law TV, Plant-Based Planet. Yeah, Kwame had no shirt on the last episode, so y'all might want to chime in on that one. Big up to him. Big up to Justice League crew. Big up to everybody, all my family out there. Also, if you want to join the experience via podcast, make sure you hop on any podcast feeder, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You can do a search for the show at the New Standard and Neil Coulong as well. Big up to new listener out there, Robert Codling. Big up to him. That's a new listener out there. Big up to Claude Bishop. Big Philadelphia. Excuse me. Dallas Cowboy fan from Philadelphia. So big up to Claude out there checking out the program. Big up to Steelers Freak. On this particular episode, of course, we're going to break down, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on it first. But the title of this program is Pickett and Pickens, Wu-Tang Killer Peas. We're on a swarm. The Wu-Tang Killer Peas. What's up, sir? And my partner in crime, Neil Coulong, has just joined. What's up, Neil?
I'm taking slow, deep breaths, Lance. But I hate StreamYard. I'm not going to lie to you.
Woo-saw, baby. Woo-saw.
My computer can't get camera or microphone access for some reason.
Hey,
which
man,
are like, key components to the entire product. So I don't really know what the problem is, but not giving me any kind of prompt. So I'm going to give you motion sickness here and do it on my phone.
Oh, I like that.
StreamYard even tells you, well, the best experience is on a laptop. It's like, well, you don't work on my laptop. So F off. I don't want to use Safari because Safari is garbage. And now I have to.
All right.
It's great.
Well, but we're here now. So let's jump right into it. Let me give you a list of the news, some of the injuries. And I want to get your perspective in terms of some of the transactions over the course of the week and just your thoughts on how important, in terms of some of this news is. Of course, the Steelers waived Master Teague with an injury designation. They waived TD Moultrie with a injury settlement, put him on injury reserve with a settlement. Carl Joseph, I think that's significant. I want to get your thoughts on that. Carl Joseph and Anthony Miller were placed on injured reserve. They signed William Dunkel, released defensive tackle Doug Cosson, outside linebackers Jake Dixon, Chris Owens, Nate Gilman, punter Cameron Nizilik. I think those guys are just guys. They waived wide receiver Javon McKinney from injured reserve with a settlement claim, Ryan McCollum off waivers from Detroit, and they placed Tuzar Skipper, the infamous and famous Tuzar Skipper. They placed him on injured reserve after clearing waivers. What's your thoughts on some of those transactions? I'm sure you're thinking that the biggest ones there is the loss of Carl Joseph and the waiving of Anthony Miller. What are your thoughts? And also about Master Teague being cut. What's your thoughts on that?
Top to bottom, it's none of these are massive. They're not significant. I would say the most notable in there would be Anthony Miller. And maybe I didn't see this, or maybe I didn't hear you say it, but they put him on IR, right? Didn't he revert to IR?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What that means, I want to go over this because it's important. At this point of the year, putting a player on injured reserve means he cannot come back. He's on injured reserve. And when a player is put on injured reserve, they have their entire contract salary guaranteed for the year. What happens is when they waive injured a guy, when it says waive/injured, you've probably seen that. What that means is they are cutting the player because he's hurt, but they're offering up, they put him on waivers so other teams have the chance to claim him if they want him. If they don't, he technically reverts to their injured reserve, but there's a rule in place that says they can buy them out, basically. So in the case of Anthony Miller, if they waived him with injury, nobody picked him up on waivers. So if they wanted to keep him for the year and pay him his entire salary, they have him revert to injured reserve. He's out for the year, but he is on their team for next year. The contract tolls and he gets that year back. That is significant in the sense that they wouldn't just keep a guy and pay him a full year's salary for literally no reason at all, unless it's to have him around for next year. That's a player they kind of want. Now, your boy, Master Teague, I think he got waived with injury, but they came to a settlement with him, right?
It says with injury designation.
Nothing about a settlement, though. I'm not seeing it in front of me because, of course, none of this is working. But I believe they waived him and came to a settlement, which is we're going to pay you X and you go away. He is then allowed to sign with any other team at any other point. But the other teams know that, he didn't pass the injury test with one team. So buyer beware. That's not a player that they're looking to keep around for any particular reason. The Steelers do not do that with veterans very often. Anthony Miller is kind of a rare exception to that. Tuzar Skipper, I believe they came to they put him on IR as well. That to me is really strange because Tuzar Skipper has played for like 9 different teams in the NFL and has always been available for everybody to sign in the offseason. So I don't know why. And plus he's got a couple of vested years under his belt. So his contract's expensive. It's like $700,000, whereas an undrafted rookie to play special teams is like 300. So they're paying a good amount of money to retain the rights to Tuzar Skipper for next year. And Tuzar Skipper has been in camp now, I think, each of the last, or maybe like 2 of the last 3 years, 3 of the last 4, something like that.
Superstars.
So yeah, exactly. They've had a very good look at him. The fact that they're keeping him, that's a little different. I'm not sure what the strategy is there, and I'm not trying to get all semantical on everybody, but the idea is that these moves are in a way much different than what they've done in the past. Carl Joseph was the name that you brought up. I don't think Carl Joseph was anything more than a very, very deep safety and special teams guy. Not entirely sure he would have made the team anyway. So his injury might have been he couldn't practice because his calf hurt, and it's like, all right, well, we'll see you then. Get out of here, and they'll pay him for his time and move on. Nothing we saw of Carl Joseph was ever real positive anyway. It wasn't like, oh, Joseph's in there, all's good. It's usually he's filling in kind of a bad situation. So he's a name for sure, but he's not a high level NFL player in any way.
Your comments about Joseph are interesting because, of course, at this time you hear a ton of rumors, and I want to jump in terms of news. Just a couple of rumors. Now, I had read on several places, I'm not sure the sources, that there were some particular big nickel packages that they were kind of trying to put together and Carl Joseph was supposed to be, essential in those packages as possibly a box safety if they played dime and they took a linebacker off the field. And also there was a rumor about a trade, the Steelers talking about a trade with Detroit and trying to get rid of Mason Rudolph. Speak to those 2 rumors. Is there anything substantial to those 2 rumors? Had you heard that, or you want to just dispel those rumors now?
I think what you just suggested is 1.5 rumors. Let's start with the Rudolph thing. I've talked to people close to the situation in Detroit. All of them say the same thing. They haven't heard anything about a Rudolph trade. They very well could be telling me that just because, but I'll say this. Andrew Filipponi, the guy in 93.7, The Fan in Pittsburgh, is the one who floated that rumor. And he also has former general manager Doug Whaley on each week. I'm pretty sure that's his source, and I'm pretty sure Doug Whaley's not close enough to anything in Detroit to suggest it's actually happening. I don't see any reason why Detroit would feel compelled to acquire Mason Rudolph via trade. And that doesn't mean there's a lot more that goes into this than it's not your fantasy team. It's not he sucks, he doesn't suck, we want to make this trade. They make those trades for specific strategic reasons. They have 3 quarterbacks. I'm not sure if any of them are any good. I don't know why they would want a 4th who we aren't sure is any good, especially when, one, they have to pay that one $3 million. That's on top of the 25 or whatever that Jared Goff is making. And 2, they have to give up assets for him. The Steelers are a team that signed a starting quarterback and drafted a quarterback in round 1. It seems more likely any team would just say, you know what, they might cut him. I don't want his contract. I might sign him after they cut him, but I'm not giving up assets for that. The way it looks right now is we could probably, for the pick that we would send Pittsburgh, I don't care where Rudolph was drafted. He's been in the league 3 years. We've seen 10 starts from him. We could probably draft a guy in the 6th or 7th round who could do something like what Rudolph did.
Exactly.
Getting back to the point, though, it's you're paying $3 million for a quarterback that, if everything goes the way that you are as a team that you are planning for it to go, never sees the field. Why are you going to pay him $3 million? A veteran backup minimum is like $1 million. You're not going to pay Mason Rudolph that kind of money unless he has a strategic purpose for being there. He does in Pittsburgh. His value is a lot higher in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is not, they'd be lucky to get 70 cents on the dollar for that trade. And because of that, I don't think anybody gives away anything. And Pittsburgh wouldn't have a reason to get rid of an experienced backup quarterback who's the only one that they have who was there last year and has played in the offense before. Yes. He has far more value as a backup to them than acquiring what's probably a conditional 7th round pick in next year's draft. There's just no real point in either side doing it, to the point that I believe the people who told me that no, they're not talking about that. I don't think Andrew Filipponi is breaking news the way that we think of it in a traditional sense. I think he is stating an anonymous opinion from somebody who might be considered in the know. I don't think that person is reporting news. I think they say, yeah, you know what? I could see the Lions doing this, even though I'll argue till I'm blue in the face. The Lions have absolutely no reason to make that trade.
You know, when I heard it, I thought it didn't pass the smell test. And I think you bring up a great point. There are some players that only have value to the teams that they're on. And, you know, Mason Rudolph kind of falls into that category for the reasons that you mentioned, because he's a veteran in the offense. In terms of anyone else in the league, he's probably worth, and I think I wrote on Twitter, an 8th round draft pick. Needless to say, there's no 8th round. And when you look at some of his metrics and statistics, and plus you just look at his game, it doesn't pass the eye test. He's not a very good player. He is an average to below average player. He's a below replacement player. There's no value there in that. He has value to the Steelers, and that's it. So I never thought that the Mason Rudolph stuff had any legs, and that's why I just reached out to you. But I wanted to hear your thoughts on it. But let's jump into the game 1 winners and losers. Give me your game 1 winners and losers. But like we talked about this week, I want to take it from a global perspective, because we're a week out from the game. But just from a global perspective, and just overall in terms of some players, who are your winners and losers? I know you gave me a couple of guys, and I gave you a couple of guys. But overall, a week away from the game, as you got a chance to step away from it, who's your winners and losers?
For me, the big one at the time, when I watched the game the next morning, when I watched it again, and later this week when I watched it, it's still the same for me. I thought Anthony McFarland played an excellent game for what he needed to do. I think that's going to dovetail into one of your winners. But to me, they ran a couple different concepts, giving him the ball. He executed those perfectly. He was in a pass protection scenario, and he stood up a defensive end and doing it, which, you know, shows his willingness to get in there. They had him on kick returns. I'm not sure how great of a return guy he is, but clearly they're looking to give him an opportunity to make the team. In my opinion, in that game, the workload that they gave him, he should have made the team. I feel like that would have sealed it for him. I don't know how if he was truly on the fence or not, but at the same time, I think in concert with the move this week with Master Teague, I think there's something to that, whether he's really injured or not. Keep in mind, too, an injury could be, well, you're kind of hurt. We don't want you on the team anymore. We're going to pay you to go away. That's kind of what that means. I think what they said was Teague is not going to be better this season than McFarland is. Whether we want him on the practice squad or not, we'll figure that out later. But for now, we don't need him. He's going to be one of the guys, the initial guys that we cut. I thought McFarland availed himself very well for what he had to do. They gave him 2 inside zone runs. He executed both of them perfectly. He had a 25-yard gainer on one of them, and the other one, which I think was his best technical run, was 7-8 yards. He did really well. I was very impressed with his game. He looks 10 times better than he has in the past. He bulked up a bit. He looks like a big boy now. He's not just kind of that little dude that you think is just this game-breaking guy that can't do anything else. He looks like an NFL player now, and I think that solidified his spot on the team, and that's what he needed to do. He stood out to me the most.
What about your loser?
Loser for me was Kendrick Green, playing left guard. I don't know if it was a serious consideration to start him there, but I don't think Green looked any better as a guard than he did in the past as a center. Now, it's just one game. I don't want to put everything on that, but he didn't look good to me. You hope for more. And I don't like the fact that because Maurkice Pouncey retired, because they needed a starting center, I don't like the fact that a 3rd-round pick is given the expectations of the team's first rounder. I mean, he might have been their most popular rookie last year, you know. Oh, well, not against the 2 they drafted ahead of him, but certainly the eyeballs were on him all season. He got a ton of work in, probably played more than Najee and Freiermuth did. But he's held to a kind of a ridiculous standard for a 3rd-round draft pick. Right. That said, I don't know how many 3rd-round draft picks around the league are going to get as many opportunities to get film and to improve and to work on his game, to build his game than Green has. And he hasn't done a whole lot with it. So I feel like it was a situation where he could have put the center stuff aside. We could have looked past it and said, okay, he's not a center. My opinion with him, and it was early, it was evident early on in his career, he couldn't get into a block after snapping the ball. He just wasn't quick enough, and that was going to hold it back. Doesn't have that problem as a guard. I didn't see substantial improvement. It's just one game, but I didn't like what I saw out of Green. Dotson is still hurt. Green's going to play again tonight. He's somebody I'm definitely going to watch. I hope for his sake he can put something together and you know, play a good game, because to be honest with you, preseason and regular season, I'm not sure Kendrick Green has played a good game. That's probably not the best place for the team to be.
Speaking to Green, unfortunately, the other name that you mentioned, who's, you know, tied to Green, Dotson, and the issue with Dotson, I think the coaching staff, I think everybody thinks that Dotson is better. The problem is, you know, the infamous saying, you can't make the club in the tub. The issue with Dotson is Dotson doesn't play. Dotson doesn't stay healthy. And so they're in a position where in the interior of their offensive line, they may be forced to play the player that's not better. I think they want to play Dotson, but unfortunately, Dotson is not available. So that's an issue. In terms of McFarland, I think that's interesting that you bring up McFarland. Let me ask you a quick question before I get into my winners and losers. With Benny Snell nursing an injury, who are your 3 backs? I think, you know, Tomlin, of course, this week named Warren a number 2 back. I think we both agree with that. Warren has juice. I mean, the kid has juice. We know Najee's the number 1 back. Warren's the 2 back. Who's the 3rd running back in this?
Let's start. Tomlin did not announce that. That was something that they put onto a depth chart, which Tomlin has acknowledged many times this year and over the years that he does it because he has to. That isn't to say that Jaylen Warren is incapable of filling that role, but it's not like it's set in stone. Okay. If it was, Benny Snell would have been on the cut list. and he wasn't. He's still there. I think that Snell, because of the time that he's missed, because of his salary, he's on the outside looking in, though. I like McFarland and Warren to back up Najee right now. And to back up Najee is to not play for the most part. So I don't know how significant it is. And to me, it's going to come down to special teams and salary. You get McFarland and Warren combined probably make about what Snell does. So do you have enough on special teams that you don't need Snell to play the up back? Is that something that I haven't seen McFarland play that? Maybe he has been and I didn't notice. Maybe you have somebody else that can be the up back. Robert Golden was a great up back in special teams for a lot of years. He's a safety. So I don't know what they're planning to do or how they'll do it, but nothing we've seen to this point suggests that Benny Snell has a great shot at making this team. For me, it's behind Najee. It's whatever, whether it matters where they are in the depth chart or not. It's McFarland and Warren, and I think we definitely saw great things out of both of those players in a game that Snell wasn't able to play. I'm not cheering for a guy to be hurt. I'm not calling him weak or anything like that. I'm just saying that he's not on the field. And the two who were both did a great job. Both showed me that they can perform at an NFL level.
Yeah, a player like Benny Snell, and looking at their cap charges, I think Benny Snell's cap charge, according to Over the Cap, is 1.1, and Anthony McFarland's is about 1 million. So they look about roughly the same. But I think you're right.
That's cap hit. What's their salary?
Their salary is about the same.
Is it?
965,000 for Snell, 895,000 for McFarland.
Okay.
So it's roughly about the same. I think with players like Benny Snell, and I think you did a great job in illustrating it, guys like Benny Snell have to be available. They don't have a lot of room to be injured. They have to be available, and they have to be available and play well and do their jobs well, because they don't do a lot of different things. And Tomlin always talks about, if you want to have great value, be able to do a bunch of different things. I mean, Benny Snell right now, I think, is very much protected by his pedigree and his draft status. Also, when I look at the running back room, I like the combination of Warren, Najee, and McFarland. I think from a skill set perspective, they give you a nice blend of different things. You got an explosive guy, you got a power guy, you got a guy in Warren that kind of does both. All three guys catch the ball okay out of the backfield. I think the comp of the skill sets, I think it's complementary in the room now. Let me give you my winner. And my winner is Kenny Pickett, the Killer Peas, Pickett and Pickens. I think because for me, when I look at this, especially from a global perspective, I think the most important thing this year is figuring out if Kenny Pickett can play. If at the end of the year, even if the Steelers are struggling and Kenny Pickett plays and he looks okay, I think that's at the end of the year, if we're saying, yeah, they struggled this year, it was a tough year, but we know that Kenny Pickett can play and is the guy, I think you win. And I think Kenny Pickett did everything in this first game, albeit a small sample size, to show that the kid can play. I mean, that the kid can play. There are some things that he does well. Obviously, he's going to grow as a player. But I think the big winner is Kenny Pickett. I thought the quarterbacks, all three, played particularly well. So I think in terms of importance, it's Pickett. We know Pickens can play. We saw that within one or two snaps. I mean, I think that's obvious. I thought overall, a lot of the rookies look pretty good this year in terms of the first game. But I think the big winner, I think for the Steelers and for Steeler Nation and for everyone, is Kenny Pickett. I mean, you want to see Kenny Pickett play very well in this preseason. I mean, that's what you want to get to by the end of the year. In terms of loser, I think the obvious loser outside of Green is Devin Bush. And Devin Bush infamously, when asked after training camp if he felt like this year was a make or break season, he answered, I mean, it's a business. I'll still be in the NFL, so we'll see. Now, I don't really have an issue with that comment. It does not come across well, clearly. Sometimes you catch guys in the moment. Sometimes guys are tired of questions, whatever. You can kind of catch them in moments. I think a lot of times we want guys to be honest, forthright, and forthcoming. And he was in that moment, in that situation. He told us exactly what he felt. Look, man, if it don't work out here, I'm going to be playing somewhere else. I mean, and that's the business aspect of it. And sometimes when that curtain is pulled back, we don't like what it looks like. But for me, more damaging than his comment there was the comment from Terrell Austin. When Terrell Austin said, quote, sometimes as coaches, we like guys that know their assignments and do their assignments, but they never make a play. The whole deal is being able to do your assignment and make a play. That's what we're really looking for in Devin. That is as damning as it gets. I mean, that is as damning as it gets, in my opinion, in terms of a statement for a coach. And in terms of losers, for the Steelers, it is significant if your other inside linebacker, if you have to play Robert Spillane a lot of snaps because your first round drafted inside linebacker does not cut the mustard, you're compromised defensively. And this is a team that we both agree needs to be very solid defensively. You cannot be vulnerable in the middle of your defense. You cannot have a guy like Devin Bush or Robert Spillane playing a ton of snaps in the middle of your defense. So the big loser clearly in the game was Devin Bush. Bush is an enigma at this point. I don't know what's going on. He's saying that he's healthy. I don't know what's going on. What's your thought in terms of my winners and losers?
Well, Devin Bush overall, somebody made an excellent point to me in social media when I was laughing about it. I think I just sarcastically said something to the effect of, yeah, nice answer. Because yes, it is. It seemed to be coming from a place of honesty. The outcome that he suggested is plenty plausible. Somebody will sign him, but part of me just kind of wants to say, yes, and I hope you're aware, you as a linebacker, for as far play this card. Sorry.
Okay.
Devin Bush has one time to play this card. That you'll be in the NFL next year. You're in with a great unwashed next year. You really need to be aware of that. If you don't play this season, you're right. Somebody is going to give you a chance. You're going to be in the NFL, but that's it, and you're going to be doing it for chump change compared to what you've been making and certainly compared to what your option is. So point being, his response, this person in social media responded to me, maybe Devin Bush is just an asshole. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I think that's fair, though. That's fair. To your point, yeah. Lance, like what you were saying, he doesn't want to talk to people. Maybe he just doesn't give an F about what questions the media are asking him. He doesn't care. And is that a problem? No. I mean, people glorified Greg Lloyd for being as combative with the media as humanly possible. Devin Bush does it in a much more smug way. It probably doesn't endear fans the same way, but the message is the same. Maybe he just doesn't really care about what people are saying, or at the very least, he doesn't trust the media who are, frankly, ripping him all the time. Now, as a part of the media, I'll say this. Devin Bush gives us ample opportunity to rip on him. I don't think he's above that by any means, and it's not my job to kiss his ass. We're talking very simply about a linebacker who we saw in, granted, a preseason game, watch a running back go hash to hash across his face, and his feet barely moved. Okay? I don't care whether you like talking to the media or not. If you have a problem with people generally asking you, what the F, do you really care? If that's your problem, you've got the wrong perspective on all this, and your career is going to end quickly. You're not going to be in this league a whole lot longer. You're going to get one more chance beyond this. That's up to him how he wants to do it. I will say this: Devin Bush it was playing in a preseason game. He is, potentially kind of pissed off that he's a veteran and he's out there as late as he was. I think a benefit of following the Steelers, covering the Steelers, is they have smart, experienced, and savvy coaches that know how to push, or perhaps more importantly,
I think we lost Neil real quick. Um, everything.
all right. I think what it's telling me is that I'm talking too long. So Terrell Austin's comments I thought were perfectly timed and they were perfectly succinct to the message that Devin Bush needed to hear. Not just about the assignments. You need to do something with it as well. And to this point, the guy's barely made a play in the last season. He barely made a play. You can't play as many snaps as he did without making a play. Joe Schobert didn't make a play. They couldn't have cut Joe Schobert fast enough. Okay, he was gone. Bush is the pedigree. Bush is the investment. They need to make absolute certain that that's going to work or not work before they do anything with him. Not a good place for him to be. The doubt is still there. He's earned it. I don't have a problem so much with his response. I got a big laugh out of it. It was entertaining to me, but we'll see what happens. I don't know what they have with him right now, and he's going to make the team, but a large part of me says that they just as soon cut him because I don't see what the point is in spending that money on him, even if you are eating. It'll be a $6 million charge of their cap either way, whether he's on the team or not. I don't see the value in having him on the roster. I really don't.
Yeah, I think as Steeler fans, we're rooting for the kid because you don't want to play Spillane 500 snaps. You just do not. And this is a team that we all think, from a defensive perspective, they have to excel defensively to kind of make their way this year and compete for the playoffs and so on and so forth. But let's jump into, and I got a couple of questions for you at the end, a couple of true or false for you as well. Let's jump into game 2. But before we put the book on game 1, let me list a couple of things that you were looking for in game 1. Pickens, the left guard rotation, wide receivers, how they look physically, Bush in the slot rotation. In terms of those 5 things, did you sufficiently see everything that you wanted to see? Did they kind of check the boxes there?
I got what I was wanting to see in terms of answering questions out of it. Some passed, some didn't. But like I mentioned about Kendrick Green, I wanted to see him playing left guard. He did not play particularly well. I have that answered now. Pickens, yep. I've been telling you, Pickens.
Check.
It's not a fluke. It's not overhype. Pickens is a big time player now. We're not going to wait for a year. You're going to see him play. He will have ups and downs. I am not calling him Jerry Rice. I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame. Please stop bringing that shit up. I'm so sick of that. I'm not putting anybody in the Hall of Fame. Okay. But George, you are a hater or you are blind if you don't think that George Pickens is a high level NFL player right now. And you'll see it very, very quickly into the season. The dude can flat out play. We saw that for sure. I don't think I saw much out of the slot. A large part of that was Anthony Miller. I wanted to see if Anthony Miller had the ability to make this team. I think they really wanted him to. I think the wide receiver position was less competitive before he was injured, and I think that's why they put him on IR, and why they're going to keep him for the season. They want him. They believe in him. Just isn't going to work for him for a little while. It sounds like he's got a pretty significant injury, as it turns out. So I didn't get to see that as much. I would move that ahead to tonight. Let's see what they do. Claypool is playing, correct? Or he's at least not hurt?
He's not hurt for sure. Okay. Not sure if he's
going to play. If he doesn't play, in all honesty, my guess is they're going to play him in the slot, and they don't want to show that. That's just my guess, my assumption based on their roster makeup. We get into this argument every year, and we have for at least 13 years, because that's as long as I've been doing this. the team keeping 6 wide receivers. Sometimes they do. It's not often. But by and large, there are 5 wide receivers that they keep active. So with that, I think it's, Gunnar Olszewski played pretty well. Minnesota pride. Bemidji State anyway. He's a Texan, but he came up to Minnesota. He can do some things. He can be a slot guy. Do you want him on your active roster? I don't know. We'll see. They gave him a contract. We'll see. But if you keep him, you got to keep 6. And I don't know if they want to necessarily do that. But perhaps depth at safety it is not as much a concern, which was the reason I felt that they kept Killebrew and Joseph. Obviously, you're going to extend Minkin. You gave a contract to Terrell Edmonds. If they wanted to keep 5 safeties, it might, with Trey Norwood being the 5th, be a little tough to do that if you're going to keep 6 receivers. So they're special teams guys that compete against each other. Olszewski is a return guy. I would think that they'd let him return some tonight if they felt that he was in active competition for a position. They might have already given it to him, and that's why they're not going to have him return now. But we'll see. He did some nice things. I don't know how great of a player he is. He's really just kind of a Ryan Switzer type, and I'm not saying that because they're both white and small, but they are both white and small, so it's kind of hard to avoid that. They're square space receivers. They're not guys that are going to run flags, deep posts, things like that, and they should have some return utility. We haven't seen Gunnar yet, but perhaps tonight they'll let him do that. If not, though, I would suggest he's going to be on the team.
They're Gunners in Switzer, and Switzer just retired. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep,
he just retired officially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys are electric football men. And if you guys are of the age to remember the electronic football men game, where you literally put men on an electric board, turned it on, and it just literally vibrated, and the men went kind of in the same one direction. Ryan Switzer and Gunnar are electric football.
They all kind of looked like Gunnar Ole Switzer.
Yes,
can't quite say that.
Electronic and his double H said
it's their
the chat.
Think of it this way. I always look at it like deficient. This. We know how popular the NFL is, and we know how ravenous fan bases are when you are actively comparing the very definition of a Jag, just a guy like Ryan Switzer, to a guy that is currently on the roster, as if he's important in some way. I mean, he isn't. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter. You got to put somebody there. And getting to your point too, I wanted to say this earlier, Lance, when we were talking about the third running back. I heard an interesting quip from a coach at one point, and there's some depth to it. But simply stated, the third running back is always healthy. What he meant by that is you can't be hurt. So your job goes away simply if you're hurt as the third running back. That's not going to be any different for the Steelers in terms of their 5th, possibly even a 6th wide receiver. Those guys are going to have to be healthy. And in a way, you got to see which one's going to survive here at the end after they get their opportunity to show what they can do. Olszewski didn't get a chance to return anything. Again, I'm not sure if that says he's the return man and they don't want to put him out there right now, or they really wanted to look at McFarland and Steven Sims, a player that looks kind of nice. I'm not sure he's quite what we've seen of Olszewski as a return man in his career. I think Olszewski's probably better as a receiver. Olszewski's okay. Not going to be a guy that you're getting 50 targets to. Okay. But neither will Steven Sims unless something goes wrong.
Right.
You have to take the guy that cost comes into it. So do you want to pay Olszewski? I don't know, but you just signed him to a contract. It's not like he's been on the team for the last 3 years. They went out and got him and brought him in. So it's harder for me to think that Olszewski will get cut in lieu of Sims, but Sims has all the makings of the Steelers practice squad receiver. They always keep 2 receivers for the most part, and those guys usually end up getting elevated. Now, going back to the new rules again for this year, they've modified this a little bit. They can still elevate 2 players per week, but they can only elevate that player 3 times a season. So you put those things together. Sims might have some utility as a return man, as a deep receiver. But these guys, he probably is there due to injury. If there is an injury at some point, that's probably what ends up happening for him. I'm
I
not
mean,
sure if that is enough to put him on the 53 right away. It's going to depend on who's hurt.
I think Gunner makes it.
Probably.
It's like you said, they went and got him,
Yeah.
and secondly, he didn't play bad. He
Yeah, he did
played
all right.
well as well. He played
Granted, who got him the first touch? Who got him his touchdown though? Pickens.
yes,
Pickens. The
yes,
safety and the linebacker collapsed on Pickens. Okay, they're
yes.
double teaming George Pickens in the second drive of his first NFL game. That's the attention that he drew last night, and that was before he made the big play. Okay, Pickens cut in, and both guys collapsed on him. Gunner was wide open. I mean, it was not a difficult throw. Unfortunately, Trubisky can make those throws, and Gunner held on to the ball. It's nice.
Idea for a T-shirt. If anyone is listening to this, you could take this T-shirt. If Gunner makes the team, you're going to see Bang Bang T-shirts, and on the back of the T-shirt, you're going to see hashtag Gunner O. I mean, it just lines up so perfectly in Pittsburgh for hashtag Gunner O. Bang bang. You just know it's coming. The 5 things I was looking for in the game was pass protection. I thought it was spotty at best, and that's being nice.
Wasn't good. Was
Offensive
not good.
line getting movement in the running game. I like that. A lot of inside zone, some duo
some good stuff. Some good stuff in there.
It was nice in there. Inside linebacker run fits. Clearly, we were kind of disappointed with one particular running back.
All of them were bad.
And
Jack made some plays individually, but as a unit, and this is on the defensive line as well. If everybody gets super excited about what their players do on offense, you look at it defensively for what the Steelers did. I don't know why the Seahawks aren't talking about a team that can rush for 5,000 yards this year. They were unchallenged in the first half. I mean, the Steelers were nowhere to be found. It was an awful performance by their run defense overall.
Yeah, Loudermilk did not show.
No, he did not play well.
He did not play well. They were getting pancaked. I mean,
it was bad. It was bad.
It was flapjacks. It was a syrup and butter on the backs.
And these are the back of the utility guys for the Steelers going up against the Seahawks starters. It's a good opportunity for them to step in there and show what they can do. And they got steamrolled. I mean, it was bad. Not happy with that at all. I would hope that John Mitchell's getting in their ear, Carl Dunbar's getting in their ear all this week about that, and they come out and play with a little bit more strength tonight.
And of course, I like Pickens, Warren, and Pickett. I thought the rookies played well. I even think Connor Hayward looked pretty good. Had one issue on a false start, but I thought he looked pretty good as well. I think he's definitely a guy that's going to be utilized, probably some 2 tight end stuff.
This is what I love about Hayward, though. What's so great about him is he's the box type of guy. He's a square box moving down the field. His ability to catch the ball away from his body is pretty amazing, considering the way he's built. He's not an exceptional athlete.
He has incredible feet. That's one of the things that he does have. He has incredible feet, and his dad had incredible feet as well. Ironhead Hayward. Connor has incredible feet. He has incredible feet. He has incredible dexterity. And that was one of the things that his dad had. His dad had great feet for a really big dude. Of course, his dad, Ironhead. So yeah, I was impressed by Connor as well. So let's jump into game 2. What are you looking for in game 2? What do you want to see?
Much of the same. I would hope, and again, I get into arguments with people on this on social media about this. The preseason should not be results based. It really should be about your technique, about what you're reading and what you're seeing. It is hard to not look at the results when you look at a guy like Devin Bush, but at the same time, what you saw out of him was pretty embarrassing. I mean, really, just to me, I hate getting on this stuff. I really do. It's annoying. It's cliched. It's very shallow and trite. It's disrespectful to your team, to your teammates. These are guys out there trying to make their living doing this. A lot of money on the line, money that Bush has already been paid. For him to just not really provide the help that he's supposed to help on some things, it makes everybody look bad. It clouds up the film. I hope we see a professional effort from Devin Bush. And I honestly, this might even be the last time I talk about it, because I'm sick of it. I hate the topic. We shouldn't have to be talking about this as much as we are. I hope he shows something. Beyond that, I really hope that the utility backup defensive linemen come a little bit harder tonight than they did. I'd like to see a little bit more out of them. We glossed over injuries a little bit. Sounds like Cam Hayward's injury is not a significant thing. He rolled his ankle in practice. It probably wasn't going to play a whole lot in these preseason games anyway, but you keep him out and you're fine. That gives a good opportunity for some of the younger guys. I don't think our defensive buddy or defensive version of Gunner, Henry Mondu, played particularly well. He had some skates on him. He got moved a bit. I'd like to see him get some more exposure, get an opportunity to show what he can do, because that's a tough defensive line depth chart. I'm not sure how much opportunity a lot of these guys have, but when you can elevate guys from the practice squad, they're competing for practice squad spots. And Mondu is the type that you probably want there. Mondu is valuable on special teams, both sides. He played a lot at that last year. Not a guy that you want out on the defensive side of the ball a whole hell of a lot, but he needs to be able to do something if he's going to play exclusively on special teams in a spot situation, which is what he's lined up to do. I'd like to see a little bit more out of him. But more than anything, I'm not sure if you guys noticed this or not, but I wanted to list rookie DeMarvin Leal as a winner in this game as well. That dude, he's something else. Take a look at him tonight. He was just ragdolling backups last week. If he's in kind of this 2.5 to third team level, watch what he does. He's a lot bigger than he was in college. He's put on a good chunk of weight, and he moves really well for a dude his size. In all honesty, Lance, you heard me talk about Isaiah Loudermilk, how much I liked him, where he was going. Leal is kind of that now. I mean, he might be able to get in there pretty consistently this year. I just for fun, I'm looking forward to seeing him again. And of course, my guy, George Pickens. This is a good rookie class from what we saw in that first game. Just like what you mentioned. I don't think Pickett was challenged all that much. You complete 13 of 15 for 90 yards. You weren't really throwing the ball a whole lot of places. It's kind of simple. The touchdown was much more of a blown tackle by a defensive back who's not going to be on that team, and a nice play by the receiver to get to the pylon. Than it was Kenny Pickett doing much of anything. But let's let Pickett get a little bit more, do a little bit more tonight. I'd like to see him, drop a little bit deeper, take some deeper reads, and try to get the ball downfield a little bit better. He's a good deep passer. That's his strength. I'm looking forward to seeing him get those opportunities tonight, and I think he will.
I echo that on Pickett, and to borrow a phrase from Charles Barkley, Leal looked hangry. He looked hangry.
He's a dude. Dude.
He looked absolutely hangry. And real quick before I get into the things I'm looking for, with Mondu, by the way, if you guys don't know, the World Championship Mullet Contest is occurring this week. If you want to look at some mullets and think of Mondu and mullets, the Mullet Championships are this week. But I think Steelers Freak chimed into and tapped into what I'm thinking: better pass pro. I just want to see the pass pro a little bit more organized.
James Daniels, you're worrying us.
It was not worried. Good. I mean, in the first maybe 7 or 8 throws, I think the quarterbacks got hit half the times.
Yeah,
and it was just
free rushes. Free rushes. They just got in. That wasn't schemed.
I mean, it was like that's. I was like, whoa, this is a problem. Houston. I think Steelers Freak tapped into something as well. Better run D, better tackling, better run fits, holding up a little better physically. Because on the play with Devin Bush, I can't remember the player. He was getting put in Devin Bush's lap on that particular run play.
Bush treats everybody like they have COVID. I mean, he's socially distanced from his opponent. He doesn't attack. And it's like, I know it's a preseason game, but why are you even practicing at all if you're that worried about getting hurt? You're not going to be worth a damn in the regular season if this is how cautiously you're playing right now. I really need to. I'm sick of talking about Devin Bush. I don't know. I've never seen a player, with the exception of anybody on the Cleveland Browns in any one of their 6 games where the Steelers beat the shit out of them before they fired their head coach. with the exception of those games, I don't think I've ever seen an NFL player as listless as Devin Bush is. He just doesn't care. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I hate that. Like I said, somebody screws up, they don't play well. Oh, he doesn't care. He's not playing with fire. It's not like the 70s Steelers. It's a bunch of bullshit. Don't listen to that stuff. But with Devin Bush, I don't have anything else to say about it because he doesn't. You can see it. He shouldn't be where he is. He shouldn't be doing the things that he's doing. Make me stop, Lance, please.
He looks a little disinterested, but I'm sure he isn't. I would say this, and just in reading it from the outside looking in, he looks frustrated. He looks frustrated that
with what? With what?
I don't think. Like I think I don't. It's something just tells me he's not back physically. But let me switch. Let me switch off of that. I also want to see Pickett, of course, and I want to see Pickens, and I want to see the rookies as well. Do you know if Levi Wallace is going to play this week?
I haven't heard that he won't.
Okay,
but they have an inactive list the size of the phone book before every game. It doesn't come out a couple hours before the game. They don't want to release that ahead of time to make sure that people are committed to actually going to the game before they confirm that no starters are playing.
Well, knowing the NFL, those preseason tickets were wrapped into some package, and
they don't do that anymore.
They don't do that anymore. Great.
No, they got smart and made the ethical choice. Can't tell you how many the Steelers and Vikings played each other in preseason a couple times back in the day, and there got to a point where I had to spend $140 on seats because I had to buy the Steelers. I'm sorry, the Steelers versus Vikings regular season games. 3 of them over the course of the 12 years when they would play. I had to buy a garbage Vikings preseason ticket along with it. And it's like, this is the cheapest way to make a buck I've ever seen. Okay, come on. Absolutely don't need to do this. I'm not going to go to the Metrodome to watch the Vikings Chargers week 4 preseason game.
Yes.
And I'm not going to get rid of the ticket either. I'm literally just going to throw it away when I get it.
Yeah,
don't be an asshole.
Yeah,
just
come on. I always hated that.
Such a garbage move.
I always hated that. But of course, for me, I'm looking for Pickett. I want to see Pickett. Tomlin is suggesting that he's going to play some varsity football against some ones. Again, for me, this year, if you answer the offensive line question and the Pickett question, to me, it's a successful year, regardless of what the record looks like. They've got to they've got to get this figured out. And it's the sooner they get the quarterback question figured out, the better. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for Pickett. I want to see the fronts play a little bit better. I'm interested in seeing Levi Wallace play, if he's going to play, what the corners look like. And of course, no injuries coming out of the game. Other than that, I'm also interested in looking at Trevor Lawrence too. I think Trevor Lawrence is a well of a young player. I want to see him in this Doug Peterson offense.
Look, you're looking at. I'll get into this a lot. We made some moves on our Jaguar site within the network. Check it out for their pregame coverage. By the way, they're going to dive into some stuff. JaguarsWire.com. Doug Peterson is the adult that they should have hired last year. And the difference between Urban Meyer, who I think just came off the worst coaching stint in the modern history of the NFL. And I'm only not lumping him in with the guys that were full-blown 24/7 drunks who sold off team equipment and stuff like that. Urban Meyer is a shade above them, and that's about it. Doug Peterson is, by all accounts, and you ask anybody who's worked with him, a phenomenal leader, organizer, manager. To give him reign over Trevor Lawrence, who is, in my opinion, the most exceptionally talented quarterback prospect I've ever seen. They're going to do some things. I'd worry about that team this year. I think they win 7, 8, 9 games. It wouldn't surprise me at all. It's a boatload of talent, and you put a guy that just simply knows how to not be an asshole, unlike Urban Meyer, does things like a professional, keeps people accountable to a high level, to a high standard. They're going to win. They're going to win, and Lawrence is going to blow up. He's a lot better than what we saw last year.
And real quickly in the open mic segment, and this is kind of what I'm talking about in terms of the quarterbacks, and I think Mike Tomlin echoed it in his statement when he said simply they moved their units. They did the informal things associated with the position from a leadership and communication standpoint. They were engaged. It was a good first time out for all three.
Yeah.
And I think he succinctly put it there,
It's fair.
surprisingly. And I think that's fair. And I think that's what I'm looking for as well in this game. But before we close the show, I wanted to do this at the top of the show, but it's fine that we're doing it at the bottom of the show. Really quickly, because we got about 5 minutes left here. What's your thoughts on the Deshaun Watson suspension and, its impact, of course, to the Steelers and their ability to win the division?
They get one game without Watson, which they would have had anyway. I think it as far as the Steelers go, it's nothing that they didn't expect. You and I have talked about this a bunch. I think clearly the final verdict was the result of a compromise of some kind. And I think while the NFL is getting plastered for it, they're not the bad guys in this case. First and foremost, Deshaun Watson's the one who did this. All right, let's not forget that. Secondly, there is a union involved. There is a collective bargaining agreement involved. They've gone through the legal channels. And if you want to look at it black and white, for what he just got punished, the amount of money that he is paying for something that he was not charged for, I think the NFL did the absolute most that it could possibly have done. I know that that's not a good answer. It really sucks. It's really unfortunate that a collective bargaining agreement has to write up specific punishment for something that nobody anticipated. Otherwise, the person gets off fairly light. But I think Deshaun Watson is not somebody I would want on my football team, period. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to get myself in trouble, but I would absolutely not want that guy on my team.
Yeah, he's definitely not a guy who you could put your face on the game program. He's definitely not a guy that you could put on your tickets.
You got to work around all of that.
And he's definitely not a guy. He's definitely not a guy that's going to get a bobblehead. And he's definitely not a guy that, I don't know if you want to be speaking at engagements.
You got to hire private security just,
essentially. It's
mistake.
It's
lots of mistakes.
The 11, 12 games felt about right. I didn't think he was going to get a year. It feels about right. When you look at Cleveland's schedule, their schedule is murderous for the games he missed. I mean, anytime you play the Bills and the Bucks back to back, and that's tough. There and Jacoby Brissett essentially is a replacement level quarterback. They're a talented roster. I don't think they survive this year. I think they're going to get blasted over the course of the time that he's out. I think the schedule is just too hard. And again, like you said, the Steelers we're going to play them without Watson early. So I don't think it changes much there. I don't think Cleveland's going to be a player in a division. Anytime a team eliminates itself, and you don't have to do.
It seems Lance is gone. I'm not sure if I'm the only one that's on right now. Somebody could let me know. That would be great. But I think what he was saying essentially is the Browns were not 100% sure who they're going to be or how competitive. There's Lance. Are you back now?
I don't know how I jumped out, but yeah,
it happened to me 3 times. So
yeah, so I mean, the Browns. It's a 3-team division now, and the Steelers have an opportunity to really make some hay very early in the season. You come out, you beat Cincinnati week 1, you beat Cleveland week 3. All of a sudden, you've got 2 division wins. It's plausible. And I can't wait to, as Double H says, Lance's internet is now the weak link. That's pretty hilarious.
Just not our good show streak is over, Lance.
Yeah, well, I think the content was good. I think the technical issues, difficulties. The content was good. The technical difficulties, real quick before we get out of here, Neil. I was going to ask a question about the offense in terms of a true or false in terms of offensive scoring, but we're bumping right on the edge of it with about 30 something seconds But I do suggest
You're gunning for that 1 hour mark, aren't you?
yes, I am gunning for the 1 hour mark to try to end the show exactly at 1 hour. Yes. But with that, listeners, we are going to go ahead and conclude the show. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.
It's the